Hello, everyone. As you're all getting settled down for the hackathon, you can get food here. We have a bunch of pizza and drinks, and we have cups as well. And I'll be talking a little bit about just like how to get started on your project. This is a topic that a lot of people have asked staff questions about, so I'd just give a little bit of extra tips and info. So the fundamental dilemma of WebLab is you have your wireframe, you have the WebLab skeleton, and then you do like something in between, and then you get something out, and somehow you win. But we're just gonna like try to explain a little bit about like what this kind of magic step in the middle is and like how to kind of get started. So the first thing you want to think about is what are your main features of your website. I think if you did milestone 1, you should have received at least some feedback about like, or have some idea of what your main features are going to be. And this kind of leads into probably the first and like most important decisions you have to make as you're working through your project. So, what are your main features? And you want to pick the most important ones to work on first. You don't have a ton of time in WebLab. It is like maybe 2 weeks from now, like until the end of WebLab. So, you really want to like focus on the things that make your app what it is. And you can think about things like what features does your app absolutely require, what features your app really wants, but technically it could do without, and then what features are nice but like optional at the end of the day. So you can build like feature by feature. You go from the features that your app really needs to the features that your app, might really want, and then to the ones that are just kind of like nice and extra. And I guess the sort of core idea is that some stuff working is better than a lot of stuff not working. So you should pick and choose wisely. So I guess now that you've picked a feature to start with, how do we actually get that into like a web app? So step 1, think about what you want to show to users. This is, building a wireframe. You should draw out or at least have an idea of, what it looks like for a person who is using your website. Step 2, convert that to React components. This is, all of your front end work. You can use dummy data. You can put in like whatever, just random stuff in there for now, but just have like that component structure there. Make sure you put in like whatever hooks you need, whatever state variables you need, etc. Step 3, you add some server-side API connections. So think about, what does your client need to know from the server? So you want to add some endpoints on your server to send data, and then call those endpoints from your client to get or change that data. And then if you need to use the database, you can add that as like the last step. Maybe you need to make some Mongo schemas to store data for the long term if necessary. So this is kind of like the general sort of outline of like how you would develop a feature like as you're building your web apps. And we went through a full stack design example with the profile from How to Win Web Lab if you were at lecture today. So I'll just go through this very quickly. With a profile, for example, you might think like, what do we want to show on the profile? We have, so we have like maybe something like this that we draw in Figma, let's say. And I mean, it doesn't really have to be a Figma, but Figma just happens to be quite helpful for doing something like this. We can then translate that into some front-end components. So we have, want to create some front-end files like profile.js and a corresponding style file. We think about what information the client needs from the server. Might be things like the user's name, the user's about me, and the user's happiness. So we can make some API endpoints for those things. And we can think about what data we need to store, and that'd be like that exact same information. We can put that into a schema for MongoDB. Awesome. And I guess you've seen this slide before, so I will not go over it again. One very big tip for y'all to like work on is when you're working, you should really, really use references. There's a lot of code that you can write in WebLab, and there's a lot of code that you will write in WebLab. And there's a lot of things that you don't need to write in WebLab. So I think Catbook is like a very good place to start for like looking at things that you can refer to. And we've taught like all of the examples. You are free to use all of the code that is in Catbook. If, for example, you're building something that like resembles a social media feed, feel free to start from Catbook and use it as like some reference code. It has a lot of like useful components already made for you, a lot of structure that we've taught, and like you hopefully will understand at least some of that, and so on. And you don't have to use like all of Catbook. You can use like whatever is most applicable for you. If, for example, you are working on a game, you might consider using Catbook's like socket structure and just like kind of copy over some of that basic stuff there. If you're, if you have like a user profile thing, you can use Catbook's like profile and kind of work from there. But it is a very good starting point for what you'll build in the next 2 weeks. You can also look at past winner sites, and I would highly recommend doing so. Just anything that's related to your idea. I mean, it could be past winner sites, it could be sites just out there in general that are related to what you're working on. And this will help you get some inspiration for like how you might design features, how you might design the flow of your site, and potential styling as well. And you can always use MDN. MDN is like an amazing resource for just coding syntax, examples of how to use things. If you want to search up like, I forgot what map does, you can look at MDN. It's very useful for that. I've provided a couple of checklists here. Also, these slides are on the website. So if you go to like weblab.mit.edu/schedule, you should be able to see these slides. But this checklist is just something to help you kind of like get started. So download Skeleton. Hopefully everyone's done that so far, but if not, that is the link. And set up your GitHub. You can think about then making a new page, adding it to your router. So you might want to think about like copying a Skeleton page and kind of like changing some stuff and playing around to see like, where you can put things. Add some React components to that, things like a title, placeholder text, buttons if you need, etc. And then you're kind of then ready to like implement that first feature. So it might have something like this. That's just very simple example, just a new page with some content. And yeah, so once you have something like this, you can think about like building out a feature. And I just have like a slightly longer version of like the earlier kind of step-by-step thing. So you pick a feature first, you think about what you want to show to users, wireframe that up, convert that to React components using some dummy data, and then add some server-side API connections, make some endpoints, call those endpoints, add a database if you need to, add schemas if you need to, and make sure you're testing along the way. So that's, I guess, a general tip of like when you're developing, you always want to be testing everything to make sure it works step by step. It's very sad to kind of like go through the whole thing, build write like 100 lines of code, test, realize it doesn't work, and then have to go back and figure out what's wrong. So make sure you're testing every step of the way. And then you repeat. So that's nice. And one last like miscellaneous setup checklist. We have just a couple things here. So if you haven't finished all of these setup steps, here are all the links to where you can find that information. You can also obviously hop on the help queue, etc., and staff will come and help you. And lastly, I have one extra checklist for styling. So obviously the first step to styling is having an idea of what you want the styles to look like, and making a wireframe helps you a lot with that. And there's actually a feature that Figma lets you export CSS directly, so you can use that to kind of not have to write as much CSS. So Figma's really good. You can use something like coolers.co or other apps like that let you generate color schemes. You can explore fonts on Google Fonts. You get a favicon, which is like the little icon, like when you have like a new tab, like that icon. And there's plenty of other like styling libraries that you might think of using. So there's just a couple here, but there's plenty more resources. If you need more resources, weblab.mit.edu has tons of like other resources that you guys can explore. So if you think like I'm kind of like in a styling like rut or something, you can visit weblab.mit.edu/resources to get just some more information. Also, weblab.is/home has all of the class links and resources. So if you ever need to refer to past lecture content or find links to like various GitHub or like Piazza or whatever, it's all on there. And if you need to get help, you are in the perfect place. So you can ask on Piazza. We have a 2-minute response time, which we are very proud of. Office hours, weblab.is/FAQ is somewhere we're trying to answer like some of the most common questions that you might have. And that will be updated as we go. And then we also have a hackathon, which is happening right now. Cool. And lastly, reminders, milestone 2 is due this coming Wednesday, January 24th at 6 p.m. sharp. Please do not procrastinate. You have multiple days to do that. Yes. And you are required to do it if you want credit or to compete. And yeah, the hackathon is right now. So there's food and drinks. Feel free to hop on the help queue, which should now be opening. And yeah.